in this career and really in general in life, one has to learn to, again, deal with those rejections. And it goes back to the same process, right? It's okay to feel those feelings. We're human. We're going to feel a certain way about things. But eventually, we need to also let ourselves um, understand things objectively, take from that feedback what serves us, let go of what does not serve us, and use that feedback and the part of the feedback that is useful to improve ourselves. Because if we never face those setbacks, if everything is perfect, then how are we going to improve?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the B-Xcellent Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Brandon Harrison Smith. Today, I have the honor of welcoming our guest, Dr. Luz Sotelo. All right. She's an assistant professor here in the mechanical engineering department here at Purdue University. And it's an honor to have another person here who's also, I recently interviewed someone who also had some NSF award grants, but you've recently been awarded an NSF award. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for the introduction. It's an honor to be here, and I'm very happy to be here with you. Our recent NSF award was really a big team effort. So our partners in University of New Hampshire and the University of Baylor, as well as our colleagues here at Purdue, put together a brilliant proposal to explore sustainability and quality and performance for in-space manufactured parts as part of, our big efforts in the areas of excellence in manufacturing and operations, as well as the expertise that we bring in non-destructive evaluation and quality control. So we're very, very excited about that. There's really, no bigger challenge than to translate our applications to space. And really, a lot of people might think, well, why is space so interesting? Besides, we're a lot of nerds.
Yeah. Or we just want to get off this planet.
Yeah. But in addition to that, anything that we create to space really works well in remote environments and in terms of accessibility, in terms of energy efficiency, in terms of, all of these things that we want to be able to translate for accessibility to science as well. So space is really a platform that allows us to translate a lot of our concepts to have access to more remote areas as well. So
absolutely. Yeah, no,
we're very excited.
That's awesome. And you're no stranger to getting these NSF awards. You've gotten plenty of these awards before. You got this NSF GRFP award, I think it is. So can you talk about that a little bit more too?
Yeah, absolutely. So during my PhD, I was awarded the NSF Graduate Research Fellowship program. And that award was really very transformational to my PhD career. It opened opportunities that I otherwise would have had no access to, but more so, it allowed me to pursue the research that I was interested in, which for my personal case was the application of sound waves to inspect materials and to understand material properties.
That's nice.
So it was great. I really heavily encourage everyone to don't be afraid to pursue these opportunities.
Absolutely.
They're transformational.
Absolutely. And then I want to go through one more award before we get into a little bit of your background. But I just want to highlight, some of the amazing awards you got. And why I want to highlight these things is these are not easy to get. All right. These are
They're not
very hard fought for awards that only a select few get. And when you get it, though, it really sets you up pretty well.
Yeah.
And then so you have this National Leadership Award with SHIP. Can you explain that?
Yeah. So it's really, it was two different awards. One with SHIP, which is the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. Very, relevant to our conversation today because we're in Hispanic Heritage Month. And SHIP has been, a professional society has been very transformational for my career as well. Focused on, again, providing access and improving participation in engineering to people that may not necessarily have access to that, and providing the tools and the knowledge and the cultural capital that people might need to be successful in their STEM careers. So I received that national award for my efforts in, all of these great and wonderful things to increase participation of the Hispanic community in STEM. And I received a similar award from the Great Minds in STEM organization, also in recognition of those efforts.
Yes. No, so you have, with these awards alone, your resume is already quite impressive. But as you see, as the audience will also see, there's even more to you than just these awards.
Oh, absolutely.
So before we go any further, let's get to know you a little bit better. So where are you actually from?
So I will start by saying that's a bit of a loaded question for somebody
Sure.
of my background.
Yeah.
And I will try to be as concise as possible.
Sure.
The short version of where I'm from is I am originally from South Texas,
Mhm.
a region known as the Rio Grande Valley,
Okay.
in the border with Mexico. But my family, when I was a baby, moved to central Mexico, a state known or called Guanajuato. So
Okay.
I grew up in León, Guanajuato, Mexico,
Okay.
and my first language is Spanish.
Okay.
And then I moved back to South Texas to pursue my undergraduate career, and I've been moving all across the United States since then.
Yes,
Yeah.
I definitely understand that. Okay. So is there a favorite placement in your life for where you grew up? Do you have any fond memories or something specific, favorite food, favorite area within Mexico that you like to visit? Or can you tell us or share with us a favorite moment from one of those places?
Yeah. So I'll share a little fun fact about myself, which is that I was originally, for a long time, a voice performer. And I
Oh,
was part of a band in late high school or so in Mexico. And as part of that, I got the chance to perform in one of the oldest venues in my city, which is called Teatro Manuel Doblado. It is a theater. It is beautiful. The architecture is just amazing. The acoustics are amazing. And just having had that opportunity to perform on that stage in front of that many people, it's, an opportunity that beyond my wildest dreams. Thankfully, that was beyond the whole, like, everybody has a camera on their phone. So there's no no record of that. Well,
That's
there
so
might be some
unfortunate.
record of that on someone's hard drive somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's just a lot of fun. And one of my favorite places and memories is to have had the opportunity to do that.
That is actually pretty amazing. And so much so, I'm almost tempted to have you perform for us right now.
So I'm just coming out of a cold, so it's probably not the best quality of voice that you might get from me, but I'm happy to do that at some other time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So next podcast, we'll definitely
Next
have you
time.
do that. All right. Okay. So now, can you tell me how you got into STEM? What was that like for you?
So I talked a little bit about one of my biggest hobbies, which is music.
Sure.
And really, that's an integral part of me. I don't think that will ever go away. My love for music will never go away.
Okay.
And I also mentioned, 5 minutes ago, that my research involves sound waves. So that connection was there. However, they did not meet until later in life.
Okay.
I grew up, the area of Mexico where I grew up, and at the time period when I was growing up, it's very conservative. So there's still, that image of the certain roles that somebody who's femme presenting needs to follow and so forth and so on. So when I was in high school, there were very, very few examples. I honestly cannot think of a single example of a woman or a femme presenting person in STEM. I did not even think that engineering was a career that I could follow. And so I actually started my undergrad career in a different major and then got terribly bored. And then it also happened that at the time we had similar calculus classes and common core classes with the engineers. And I was helping a lot of my engineering friends with their homework. And I have this very good friend who once told me, "What are you doing? You're teaching all of us. You should be an engineer."
Hmm.
And that really got me thinking and really started me on the STEM path, on the engineering path. A separate anecdote that I could share, also from when I was very, very young, I don't know, a child really, was that I've always been terrified of rides, like park rides and things like that. And the reason why is because when I was very little, I would look at the structures and I would try to find, the specific bolt or the specific cable or the specific,
This thing came apart.
yeah,
the
like
whole thing's
where,
gonna fall
yes,
apart.
exactly. Like where is that failure point?
The structural.
The structural failure point, like from which my life is depending upon right now.
Oh, wow.
So I was doing failure analysis as a 5-year-old.
Oh, wow.
And I also really liked the teaching aspect. So I mentioned, I was helping my engineering friends with their homework as a high schooler and early undergrad. I've been, just helping people with their coursework and classwork for a long time. So now thinking back, all of the pieces of who I am today in STEM were there. There was just not that clear path ahead of me yet. Sure. And so my transition to a STEM career was really everything but linear. There was also a lot of added, just economical insecurity and everything that comes from, coming from a family that may not have all of the resources available, having to work to help support my family and things like that, that made the journey a little bit more difficult. But what I want to share is that once everything fell into place and I got into the right institution in the right degree, and I started having access to mentors that were able to provide the guidance and the reassurance that I belonged and that this was a place where I could succeed and thrive. Really, I was able to finish my mechanical engineering degree within 3 years.
Right.
So
what actually got you into mechanical engineering? So like, I know your friends were like, you should do engineering.
Yeah.
But why mechanical engineering? Why not chemical or what?
Yeah. So to me, it was I looked at the classes that were taught, right? And I was very interested in the mechanics aspect, the physics aspect. I was already thinking sound waves aspect. And is there any career that can get me close to understanding, things like vibrations and things like, how waves travel through materials and things like that. So even very early on, I was going at a career that would get me close to that materials knowledge and also close to the mechanics, vibrations, sound wave propagation problem.
Okay.
So that career was mechanical engineering.
Absolutely. Now, was the goal always to do a PhD, or that kind of evolved from somewhere? So
that also evolved from somewhere. And just to clarify a little bit, when I started in my undergrad in the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley, the first quote unquote engineering class that I took was materials, which is where my materials interest came about.
Okay.
I also took very early on a numerical methods class. And because I was new to the system, because I was new to the, for whatever reason, one, I was always very on top of my classwork and readings and all of that. But two, I was also always asking questions. And so I believe that helped me stand out in front of, for my professors. And they also recognized that I was engaged and that I had genuine interest in what we were doing and in mastering what we were doing. So one of those professors, actually my numerical methods professor, said, "Hey, I have a friend in this other university. They work in this research area, and there's a potential summer research opportunity there. Are you interested?" And I said, yes, of course I'm interested, but I also have, a family to support. So I need to, balance that. And then another one of my mentors jumped in and she said, "Go. And when you come back, I'll have a job for you. So don't be afraid to, to lose your current job because you'll get paid when you go there, and I'll have a job for you at the university when you come back.
Nice.
Again, access to mentors and access to people that can provide those opportunities, very, very transformational.
Absolutely. I imagine that your engagement and your genuine enthusiasm about what was happening in the classroom allowed you to stand out about your peers and be someone that they could recommend.
Exactly. So through that summer research internship, to finish answering your question, my mentor there was also amazing. He was at the University of Nebraska. It was a different research area that was interesting, but did not necessarily resonate with what I wanted to do in the future. But I learned a lot about graduate school and the graduate school application process, and a lot of other different things from him. He's fantastic, by the way. He also has some engineering education series in fluid dynamics and anime, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome,
so
actually.
That's an aside. But anyway, he was the first person who told me that I could go to grad school and get paid for it, which I wildly did not know. And then I come to learn that a lot of people in the Hispanic community are unaware of that. Yeah. And really, people that do not necessarily grow up in this spaces, we don't know that. So I was like, wait a minute, you tell me that I could do this for a living? Like, I could do research and like teach other people and, provide this kind of opportunities and be as transformational in the lives of other people as my mentors have been in my life and get paid for it? Yes. So that's what has eventually got me into wanting to pursue a PhD. It really, again, brought all the pieces of the puzzle together for me.
Okay. So the pieces kind of came together as you went through your experience.
Yeah.
Okay. So now let's dive a little bit into the research. So you were talking about that you were always interested in vibrations, sounds, understanding materials. Can you talk a little bit about, some of your earlier research and where your research is now?
Yes. So some of my earlier research as an undergraduate was in basically detecting whether these big mechanical components that go on trains, so train bearings, were defective or not based on their temperature emissions or their vibration emissions.
So this is back to the whole roller coaster ride.
Exactly. Back to the whole what needs to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
And how could I stay alive? How could I make sure that this mechanism keeps me alive?
Absolutely.
And it's safe for everybody. Absolutely. So, that safety component, but also that vibration analysis component was certainly there. And my mentor in that research project, fantastic person. I cannot thank him enough as well. So that gave me access to, again, the basically onboard monitoring. So monitoring the mechanism as we're simulating its life. So listening to basically, I don't know, maybe trains passing by on a railroad, or listening to the bearings as they're mounted on a simulated life test. And then based on those sound waves that they emit and that we capture, determining whether or not they're faulty. So that's one thing. From there, we could also move on to study those same systems, but at a more microstructure level, to identify whether there's specific locations within that mechanical component that maybe had an impurity or had a crack or had, if that whole mechanism or if that whole component is faulty, where did that fault originated? And so that allowed me to go back to the University of Nebraska for another research internship to use ultrasonic waves, so very high frequency waves, to try to find where did that originated. So a lot of people's exposure to ultrasound is from the medical perspective, like people like pregnant people go get an ultrasound to make sure that everything is going well and things like that. So sometimes, at the very layman terms or layperson terms, I describe my work as, or that work as trying to find, same idea, try to find babies in the train bearings, but the babies are bad.
Okay.
So
Understood.
So,
okay.
So that was that experience, and then we built up from that experience in during my graduate program. on one hand, to understand the material and the material properties. So not just whether there's a fault in the material, but also what are the material properties? Is the material strong enough? Does the material has the right properties for the way that we're going to load it? And to be able to withstand the loads that it's going to experience in service. And then also translate that to the 3D printing realm. So now with the avenue of 3D printing and metal 3D printing and multi-material 3D printing, there's just a lot more complexity in the materials that we're placing out there in our components.
Gotcha.
So our ability to understand those material systems without having to destroy them is that much more crucial. Because one, again, they're complex systems. They're also very expensive to make. And they take a long time to make, and they're very highly customized. So again, how do we translate everything that we've learned into using our understanding of the way sound propagates through materials to ensure that what we made with these fancy systems is what we actually intended to build?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's pretty awesome.
Mhm.
All right, and with this new NSF award, you're taking your research to space.
Yeah, and then we're taking all of that to space. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
No, so this is really, really interesting stuff here. So now I want to shift, some of my questions, into, let me start with your career. So like right now you're an assistant professor, you're doing all this amazing research. Where do you see yourself going into? Do you feel like you're going to continue on this path? Do you feel like you want to move into more administrative roles in the future? Like, how do you see this kind of branching out for you?
Yeah.
Or do you want to even get even further, not just in space? Maybe you want to go to the next universe.
Yeah.
With your
Or the
research.
multiverse.
Exactly.
So that is a great question. And it is a great question because I don't know that a lot of people actually know what professors do.
Right. No, this is
I certainly did not know when I was an undergrad. And I don't know that a lot of people have that perspective,
Right.
especially people that are, again, not in this area
Absolutely.
or associated with this area. So part of my role as an assistant professor, a very big part of my role is, again, to go after research and pursue research and expand our knowledge base in the service of humanity.
Right.
In general, go after the frontiers of science and expand that. Part of my role is also the teaching aspect and to, ensure that we're communicating what our fundamentals and what we know about our discipline, but also all of those great things that we're doing in research, that those things are being communicated to the next generation of engineers and the next generation of professionals that we're, setting out into the world. And that to make sure that we position them to be as successful as they can be. And then part of it is also providing service. So that could be in terms of, again, our outreach to our communities or service to interprofessional societies, or as you mentioned, administrative roles, and just making sure that our academic systems and our professional systems and structures are operational. Somebody needs to operate those systems.
Absolutely.
For a long time in my PhD program, I mentioned I earned those leadership awards. And part of that was because I did a lot of outreach work and a lot of service work within and outside my university. And so that experience helped me or directed me towards recognizing that I might be well suited for a leadership position later on in my career. When I started my path, or when I was starting that transition between, the late years of my PhD and the early years of my professional career, I was thinking maybe at some point I will go after a leadership position or a more administrative position so that, again, I can help enable more people to do great and wonderful things and be as transformational and successful as they can be. More recently, though, I had the opportunity to participate in a DARPA Connect event that happened in Indianapolis. And that opened my eyes to another field or another area in which I could potentially explore later on in life or in my career life, which is the program management and program directing area of research, which is, basically how do we set the priorities that as a nation we're going to pursue in terms of our scientific endeavors, and how do we become really those thought leaders in terms of what is the science that we need so that we can advance, the rest of our efforts as a nation and in the world.
Absolutely.
So those are two potential career paths. Again, I'm very early on in my career, but I'm interested in that.
No, I think this gives people like an insight and ideas. I think you've shown a lot of ideas of what you can do, and also how it comes together. It comes together very kind of all over the place, and you make it into a linear path later on. But it's still branching, and you're still growing. And even now, like even though you said these things, it could go into a whole different other direction.
Yeah,
it really just depends on the year-to-year progression of life and funding, where money is coming from,
and opportunities and so forth.
Absolutely.
So I definitely like to emphasize that, and highlight that definitely my path was not linear at all, and it doesn't need to be linear for you to be successful. And I'm a perfect example of that. So, I know if there's any high schooler that doesn't know what they want to do, or any undergrad that doesn't know what they want to do, or any like early career undergrad, or any, junior, senior that are like, I like everything, I don't know what I want to focus on. That's okay. You will figure it out. It's going to be fine.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
And I will say that to your points though, which you stated, but to re-highlight it, internships were a great indicator of helping you understand and narrow down which direction you wanted to go into.
Yeah.
All right. And internships, and then the right exposures to the right mentors.
Exactly. Internships and mentors. And I think that that's a big part of why I'm here today, because so many people were transformational for me, and I want to emulate that in the lives of other people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. And so now I have another question. Okay.
Yeah.
So we talked about the really nice stuff. We talked about like your awards. We talked about like how you got into research, the fun stuff. But let's talk about some stuff that maybe a little bit show the other side of things. Can you name a time where you struggled during your academic process and how you overcame that obstacle?
I can name two. One that's academic related and one that's more research related.
Okay.
Academically, the transition between undergrad and grad school was tough. And me being the high achiever that I am, thought I could take all these classes in grad school because I was taking all these classes in undergrad and it's gonna be fine. It was not fine. I mean, we survived. We made it through. We got good grades, whatever. But one of the earliest classes that I took, actually, my first semester, one of the first classes that I took was the advanced math class that was actually also taught by my advisor. And I bombed the first exam. Like, awful first exam. How did I manage through that? I studied a lot for my second exam, and for my third exam, and for my final. But yeah, I mean, just, when you're used to getting all A's and A pluses, and then you get an awful grade, you're like, ooh, am I really cut out for this? Like,
How did you get over that though? I would imagine like a lot of doubt set in very quickly.
Yes. And so I've highlighted access to good mentors many times. I think that that's, a big theme in my life. And there was another very good mentor that had a very similar experience in their transition between undergrad and grad school.
Okay.
That told me it's going to be fine. This is part of it. And this does not define you. And this does not necessarily define, your ability or how smart you are or anything like that. You have a lot on your plate right now, and it's okay. You can, if things went this way, we can fix it the next time. We have opportunities to come back from this. So, yes, you're allowed to feel however you're feeling. You're allowed to feel your feelings. But we're going to, pick the pieces up, and we're going to continue on, and we're going to continue grinding to improve what's under our control.
Okay.
And so I think it really summarizes to, again, access to good mentors and also access to a good support system.
All right.
So, and I do think that good mentors are part of your support system.
Right.
Really.
Right.
So, so that was that was one experience that I can highlight. And I can say that because, now I have students that come to me, very worried after having a bad first exam, and I can share that with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's okay. You see me with a PhD, that does not mean that everything has been perfect my entire life. And it's okay.
I think that was, I think being early on in that process, it's really hard to listen to professors at times. They're like, oh, this is okay. This doesn't define you.
Yeah.
And you're like, it's really hard.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think that's the main point, that you feel like in undergrad and even in school period, you feel like what defines you is your GPA.
Yeah.
Your GPA and the grades you're getting.
Yeah.
You think this teacher sees me get a B or C or A, like they're thinking a certain way about me. But not necessarily. Your GPA, I think when you get to undergrad and graduate, is not what well defines you. It's the questions you asked. It's the genuine enthusiasm you have for the particular research.
Exactly.
That defines you. And people go look at that. Like, I don't remember any of the people that I think very highly of. I don't know their grades.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know their GPAs, but I do know how enthused they are about this particular topic.
Yeah.
I do know that they're very much so engaged. So like when I go back to different universities, I know certain people I want to talk to about different things because I know they'll be interested in this and they'll help me think about this and expand this idea because of their enthusiasm.
Yeah. It's just your GPA, your grades are part of the story. And yes, we need to keep in mind what are the requirements and things like that. Of course.
Reach thresholds for sure.
Yes. But again, it comes back to that. It's part of the story. And you do what you got to do to meet those requirements and that criteria. But, if we have one setback, it's okay. We can come back from that.
Yeah.
And I think it is important to recognize that we have the ability to come back from that.
Absolutely.
And that one bad experience is not gonna, it's not the end of the world. It's gonna be okay.
No, I definitely like that. And maybe I'll title one of these episodes, "What Defines Your Story?" And I think the sooner you understand what defines your story, you can focus on the right things, right? Because now you're like, oh, yes, I got to maintain a grade. As long as I'm over that threshold somewhere, I'm good, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So, I could go a little bit into the second story, but the theme is very similar. So that was in the academic side of things. The research side of things, I think it was my first paper rejection.
Yeah.
That hurts.
Yeah.
Because it is somebody, and sometimes, you can go about, it was that a fair review and blah, blah, blah. But, the fact of the matter is, in this career and really in general in life, one has to learn to, again, deal with those rejections. And it goes back to the same process, right? It's okay to feel those feelings. We're human. We're going to feel a certain way about things. But eventually, we need to also let ourselves understand things objectively, take from that feedback what serves us, let go of what does not serve us, and use that feedback and the part of the feedback that is useful to improve ourselves. Because if we never face those setbacks, if everything is perfect, then how are we going to improve? What is our room for growth if everything we ever produce is always perfect?
Absolutely.
Right?
What kind of story?
Exactly.
What type of story is worth watching or movie worth watching?
Yeah.
There's no struggle.
Yeah.
Right?
And there's an important term here that I don't know if audience is familiar with or has come about. But basically what I'm describing is having a growth mindset. Which is again that idea of, yes, the setbacks happened. But this is really, we take the setbacks as an opportunity to improve ourselves and to continue growing and to continue learning. Even today, I am continuing to learn. I am continuing to grow. There's a lot of things in the world that I don't know about. And the more you dive into a specific topic, you are more aware of everything that you don't know and all of the areas of opportunity in which you can grow. So having that growth mindset is really, I think, very key and crucial to be able to overcome overcome these setbacks and challenges.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. We're going to wrap up with a couple more questions before I let you get out of here.
Yeah, that's fine.
But one question just came to mind. When we talk about academia, only a certain people want to go. A lot of people are like industry all the way. What do you think is one of the most exciting parts of what you do? Why academia for you?
Yeah. So to me, I will talk about it from one perspective, which is the perspective that I had before coming here. Before coming here, I was actually at the Naval Research Laboratory. So I did a postdoc there for a year and a half. That was a great experience. I worked with some amazing people. I had amazing mentors as well. Again, I'm very grateful that that's been a theme in my life. But the piece that I was missing when I was there was having the interaction with students. And that is really what's missing from that position for me. That interaction with students in terms of, the teaching aspect, or it could be, when I teach this in this large classes, in these large halls, they ask questions that I'm like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. Let me get back to you on that. They think about topics, or they think about, things in ways that I may not have thought about, because again, we're different people. We have unique brains. So that interaction with students is very, irreplaceable to me. And so that's one of the big pieces that I was missing. So that's from the, and it comes from the teaching aspect, but it also comes in the research aspect. So now I have the opportunity to lead my own team. I'm working on, my mentorship skills and becoming, because now I'm the manager, now I'm the leader. Now I need to, really step up my game and make sure that I'm leading them with a correct direction, that I'm being helpful, but that I'm also enabling them to pursue, their own research topics and become their own independent researchers and thinkers. So managing that is interesting, but those conversations as well, we may talk about the same paper, and it might be a paper that I've read, 20 times, but they caught something different. And those sparks are very unique to, well, I think in my experience are very unique to academia. So that I really miss that interaction to students when I was in my postdoctoral position. Other than that, again, that postdoctoral position was fantastic. Great access to research and all that. The other piece of information that I will provide now that I am in this position, of which I'm very new. I don't know that we mentioned that I started in January 2023. So I've been in this position for like 9 months total.
From your impressive resume, awards, I wouldn't have known.
So I don't know that we mentioned that. I just want to put that out there. But the reason I put that out there is because I've seen professors without being a professor, and I thought I had an idea of what they did. Like I thought I understood what they did, and I thought I understood how it was. But now that I'm in this position, I feel a lot like almost the lead of a startup. And then I thought about it, and professors get startup funding.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, that language makes a lot of sense, because I almost feel like, I got the startup funding that allows me to build my enterprise, to pursue different funding that funds, the research ideas that I'm passionate about and that my students and my research team is passionate about.
Right.
So in a sense, as a professor, I'm also kind of an entrepreneur. And I never thought that I was going to be in the entrepreneurship area of things. But it really works a lot. There's a lot of parallels to draw there.
Yeah.
We do, product ideation. We do prototyping. We do application. So there's really a lot of parallels to be drawn there that you can get in academia, with just as, or in a similar manner as you get in industry, with the differentiation that when you're in academia, it's your ideas. You set the direction. And so sometimes, people might want that freedom. People might not want that freedom. People might want to have that freedom in a different setting. And that's perfectly fine.
Right.
But that is something unique that unique that I've realized about this position now that I am in it.
I will say that I think two things that I will actually speak to is one, that creative freedom in academia is definitely amazing.
Yeah.
There's drawbacks to everything you do in life,
Yeah.
but I think the creative freedom that you have, you're building your own enterprise.
Exactly.
Now, sometimes that may not be for you. You're like, that's too intimidating. That's too much weight on my shoulders.
And that's perfectly
And
fine.
that's perfectly
It's totally
fine
valid.
as well. But if you like, being a little control freak and taking over, and you're like, this is my ship, I get to drive it, then this academia is definitely for that. And especially if you're passionate about the research you're doing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing is, I also resonate with the ambiguity of what you thought something was, and then you get into it and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, this is
Like,
what
wait
this
a
is
minute.
about.
Uh-huh.
And what I've learned actually, post getting my Ph.D. and being a postdoc and talking to different people, is that depending on what level it is, the curtain is peeled back and you learn a little bit more about the business of academia itself. And for people like us, we just didn't know. We didn't have anybody to peel all those layers back. But I think we couldn't have as well, because this whole process has kind of been a bit of a journey of a sorts that it's ups and downs. So probably telling us too much may have altered the course, but it's good that you've made it thus far, and it's good that you've made all these accomplishments and you're just starting. You're just starting. So
Thank you.
I definitely encourage you to keep going and keep doing what you're doing.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
I think the students here are definitely lucky to have you. And actually, I've heard some great things from you from other students. I won't let you know who they are, but there's a lot of students have put you on my radar before we actually met, actually.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That's good to hear.
So right now we're about to end the podcast. One, is there anything that you want to say, or even ask me in general? I want to give you an opportunity and space to say things that we didn't get to possibly talk about. And if you want to be back on, you're definitely invited back on. We can talk a little bit more and go in depth about the research that you're doing. And then hopefully next time we have you on, you'll be a little bit into that process, and we can talk a little bit more about space. I think that might be very interesting.
That'd be fun.
But if you have nothing else, I want to thank you for being on the podcast. Some of the takeaways that I want to leave the audience like really marinating on is like crafting your support system is very important. Finding your mentors early can be the difference in how successful you are.
Yeah.
And then learning how to take rejection. All right. Rejection can be frustrating. Yes. But you want to have a growth mindset when it comes to rejection.
Exactly.
And if you have a growth mindset, you will only grow stronger from those situations and not weaker.
Yes.
Okay. So again, like I said, thank you for dropping a lot of your knowledge and information on what it took you to be excellent and all the things you plan to do in the future too. So I like to ask the audience to like, comment, subscribe, and, tell us, what your support system looks like. Share with us how you go about crafting your support system. And until next time, be excellent.